I know a lot of people who once they decided the biggest hurdle, well, there's probably two. I mean, the first one I would say is just realizing that it's not too late and that starting somewhere and starting small is so important. It's very easy to get discouraged because if you're at that point and you're just like, I don't know what to do, it seems if someone like me steps in and says, well, just start putting away $25 a month. That almost sounds like useless advice, and I understand that because it feels like, well, if I'm 52 years old and you're telling me to put away $25 a month, what is that really going to do? What is that going to add up to? And I understand that, but what people don't realize is that it actually kind of sparks better habits, and
Mm,
it does start to take effect, and all of a sudden when you start to see it grow, then you somehow find ways to put maybe $30 a month or then 50, and you almost turn the whole script around, and it becomes exciting when you start to see progress. So I think that, and I have seen it happen. So I think that that's probably the hardest thing, is to just know that, is to not get discouraged.
If you don't have enough money saved for your retirement, like me and millions of other people, you're not alone. Welcome to the Wise Retirement Podcast. We'll learn how to invest, save, and earn more toward a comfortable retirement. Hi, I'm Angela Kay.
And I'm Reginald Thornton, along for this ride as well. Did you know that 20% of Americans age 50 and above have no retirement savings at all? Even worse, 3 times that amount are concerned that they don't have enough saved for a comfortable retirement.
Reg and I will talk with experts in their field, explore catch-up strategies, share success stories that we hope are inspiring, and learn about family wealth-building techniques that actually work. We'll also break down those complex financial topics into clear, actionable steps that everyone can understand and use.
Welcome to the ride, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to another episode of the Wise Retirement Podcast. I'm Angela Kay.
And I'm Reginald Thornton, joining you along on this journey with you with your financial wellness. Did you know that 64% of Americans over 50 aren't financially prepared for retirement? Many believe it's too late to make the difference. But here's the shocking truth. You can transform your retirement outlook in just 12 to 18 months, even if you're starting from zero. Stay tuned to discover how real people turn their financial futures around.
That's right. In this two-part series, our special guest, a seasoned financial planner, shares real-world client stories that prove it's never too late to start saving for your retirement. You'll hear how she guided clients who started investing late and still built a nice nest egg for themselves. Today, in part 1, our expert reveals the first 3 critical steps in this process. First, we'll do a financial assessment that proves clearly on where you stand today in your finances. Second, Melissa will share her method for finding hidden expenses to redirect toward retirement. And third, you'll get the foundation for smart investing without the overwhelm. So these aren't just theories, these are proven strategies with real results.
Important. Today, we're excited to be joined by Melissa Carl. Melissa Carl is a certified financial planner professional with extensive experience in equity trading, wealth management, and retirement planning. She is the founder of My Retirement Network, a financial educational platform that helps individuals plan for their future with clarity and confidence. Melissa creates practical tools, newsletters, and continuing education courses that simplify complex topics like Social Security, debt, and personal forecasting. Melissa has been quoted in numerous national media outlets, including Bloomberg, CBS News, CNBC, Fortune, Fox Business, Investors Business Daily, Investopedia, Clippinger, MarketWatch, MSN Money, Reuters, and the Wall Street Journal. Whew, that's a lot, Melissa.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Something that people don't know about Melissa. Let's see what that is. So most people don't think financial folks have a creative side. But for Melissa, the design process for her platform, My Retirement Network, was just as much fun for her as creating the content itself. She was fully in charge of the visual styling, the branding, and tone, and she loves shaping how the platform looks and feels today. That creative spark has only grown. What started as a way to educate the public is now becoming a broader vision, educating everyday people like you and me, and training advisors on how to communicate more clearly, and even developing cartoon characters to teach kids the concept of financial literacy. I applaud you for that, Mel.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Before we dive in, could you tell our listeners a bit more about why and how you got started in this world of financial planning?
Sure. Well, we'll have to sum that up quickly or we'd have a whole episode on that. But I would say that from a young age, believe it or not, I think I was destined to work in finance. I always leaned toward math when I was growing up. So, when you're at that point just coming out of college and you don't really know what exists in the world for you, but I knew that somehow I wanted to go into finance. And honestly, I spent quite a number of years working in equity trading. It was something that I loved doing. I enjoyed the energy of the trading floor, and it was such a great way to really understand markets and what makes them move. But after a certain amount of time, that the level of energy required to do that starts to wane, and when you're in your 40s, you're like, well, maybe there's something else that I could do that's a little more calm. And so it was a very natural progression for me to move into what I would call the wealth management side.
Mm.
And it just kind of happened organically, a little bit at a time. I started consulting for some firms, helping them design some of their processes and run marketing, and just, sort of wore various hats throughout. And that eventually led me to get my CFP and really learn a lot more about the space. And most importantly, realize how there's such a lack of education, free education without bias and without trying to sell people something available out there. So that was kind of my inspiration.
Fantastic. Wow.
Interesting.
Okay. Thanks, Melissa.
And related to building wealth, talk a bit about how common it is for people who are in the 50 and above age bracket to not be prepared for retirement financially.
It's extremely common, and I think that that's not talked about enough because the way financial literacy usually works is we're told from a young age that the best thing we can do is to start saving early. And you read all these things about even just a little bit of it at a time, and you get that advantage of compound interest, and people throw all this lingo out there, right? And it's absolutely true. But people are struggling, and it's not always so easy to say, well, so it's very common to just be living paycheck to paycheck. As many of us know, things are expensive, and sometimes people just are trying to get through the day, through the week, to feed their family and so on. And they really don't have much extra to put toward planning for retirement. It's very understandable that it's just not front of mind for people who are struggling to pay the bills and, put food on the table. And so life goes on and the years pass. And then all of a sudden, and you're not really thinking about it. If you're let's say, a young family in your 30s, right, and you're worried about your kids and their future and paying your rent and so forth, you're not really thinking about that. Maybe you're realizing at that point that you need some savings, like toward an emergency fund. But I think that retirement planning is probably so far off that people don't think about it. And then all of a sudden, as we all know, life goes by and you're over 50
Right.
and you're like, wait a second. Now I'm here and I only have so many working years left. Now what do I do?
Right.
So that is the issue that most of us have, is not having enough, right? But it's never too late. And that's why we're glad that you're here with us. Are there examples, Melissa, that you could share of clients who have successfully started paying down their debt or investing and saving when it was later in life?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I know a lot of people who once they decided the biggest hurdle, well, there's probably two. I mean, the first one I would say is just realizing that it's not too late. and that starting somewhere and starting small is so important. It's very easy to get discouraged because if you're at that point and you're just like, I don't know what to do, it seems if someone like me steps in and says, well, just start putting away $25 a month. That almost sounds like useless advice, and I understand that because it feels like, well, if I'm 52 years old and you're telling me to put away $25 a month, what is that really going to do? What is that going to add up to? And I understand that, but what people don't realize is that it actually kind of sparks better habits, and
Mm,
it does start to take effect, and all of a sudden when you start to see it grow, then you somehow find ways to put maybe $30 a month or then 50, and you almost turn the whole script around, and it becomes exciting when you start to see progress. So I think that, and I have seen it happen. So I think that that's probably the hardest thing, is to just know that, is to not get discouraged, to really
Hmm.
understand that that advice, of the typical advice you always hear, start small, it's better, all that stuff, it really that advice is based on true stories that have seen success. Now I can't create time, and I can't create money for people, so I understand that it might not have you end up exactly where you had hoped you'd be when you set out on your professional journey, but still I think that if people just start somewhere, they will be surprised at what they can accomplish.
mm, mm.
That's
That's good.
encouraging.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, all that said, let's begin to dive in a little bit with these steps and learn some concrete examples of achieving these financial goals. Completing a thorough financial assessment. How would you suggest people start that process?
Sure. Well, I have found that one of the issues that I see is that there are so many different parts to your financial life, and it's overwhelming if you try to attack the savings piece, the where am I getting the money, and combine it with what am I doing with the money. And I think that too many people sort of combine everything at once. And so I strongly suggest that I look at it this way, is that if you're sitting in a position where you don't have any retirement savings, don't worry yet about how you're going to allocate it when you get there. Are you going to buy stocks? Are you buying bonds? How do I go about this? People get so caught up in being almost preliminarily overwhelmed with something that they're not there yet. You don't have to worry about that. So the best thing you could do is, what you really want to do is find money. Go on an internal financial journey and find that money. Where am I getting that money from? And the best place to start with that, and I realize that, might be people listening to this right now and saying, nope, I don't, I'm telling you, I don't have any. And I'm not arguing that in some cases that might not be true. But what I highly recommend is that people do, I would call it an analysis of your finances. And the way you do that is to sit down and map out, where is all my money going? Because I think no matter where we are, that's a feeling. Even if you're getting by, there is this general feeling of, I don't know where all my money goes. I make money and my credit card bill comes, and I don't really feel like I've done that much as far as being frivolous. And it's thousands of dollars, and where is all this money going? And where it's going is, all of those expenses, your rent, your mortgage, your utilities, your cell phone bill. I mean, we have so many more really necessary expenses these days: food, gas, everything. And when you really start to list it out, you not only see where it's going, but then you can also have some potential to sit back and look at those numbers and say, okay, where can I do better? And I'll give you some steps later, and where, there are ways to sort of maybe lower some of those bills.
Well, that really actually
Makes
takes us
sense.
into the next step. Step two is eliminating unnecessary expenses. But what is an unnecessary expense? We could find them, the extra latte at a certain coffee shop or something. I'm not sure. Where we find those unnecessary expenses, Melissa?
Exactly. Again, easier said than done. I always tell people too that everyone's journey is going to be different, and it really is also about finding a balance. Depending on where you are, you don't want to go from one extreme to another. I talk a lot in one of my webinars about behavioral finance. And I also know people who are extreme savers. And by extreme, I mean they're not having any fun. They don't, they put everything away. They're so focused on saving for retirement because they're worried they're going to run out of money, so they don't do anything, they don't travel. And then sadly, sometimes people can find themselves in their 50s and 60s and they're hit with an illness, and then they have regrets. And so I bring that up to emphasize that I'm not looking to take anyone's fun away. I think that it's very important to have some fun, to treat yourself, to find that balance. And the times when you're cutting, so it really, you have to, I'm talking about all my webinars, but I developed another talk called Financial Triage. And that's essentially diagnosing, if you will, where you are. So if you're in a place where you are really in trouble and you can't pay, your lights are going to get shut off, or you're going to lose your home, then yeah, we're cutting out the lattes. Unfortunately, we're not having much fun.
Right.
And that's to get to another level, right? And so there certainly are times where we're cutting out everything that's unnecessary, but other times it is a matter of kind of going back to seeing where all that money is going. And when you're more in tune with your finances, you realize how much money just goes out the window. You say, oh, I forgot. I didn't realize I was on an annual subscription to, one of the streaming networks, or even things like, I know that my husband and I watch one show on a particular streaming network, but that show then goes off season for a year at a time. And I'm like, why are we paying for this? Let's put it on pause, or let's unsubscribe. And when the show comes back on, we'll subscribe again. Right. But
Exactly.
I do it. We all do it.
Yes,
How common
indeed.
is that? So that's what I mean. You're not going to find that stuff if you're not constantly looking at where that money is going.
It's interesting. I've found myself canceling some subscriptions I've had for maybe decades, or at least years. And I realize there are various levels of subscriptions. Oh, I might not get the $20, I might get the $8 subscription, or maybe I'll substitute this subscription for some fun outside or some other activity that can replace I was spending that money and time on, that it would benefit me for my future. So that's very helpful. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, it is indeed. I wanted to ask another question as it relates to, and I know we'll probably dig into it a little more, but as you were talking, I was thinking about eliminating debt. And one of the things I did years ago when I realized that my credit card debt was climbing, I went through a phase where I would pay, let's say if I had 5 credit cards, I'd pay the minimum on 4 of them and then pay as much as I could on the other, which helped me to eliminate that debt a whole lot faster. So with that said, creating a realistic budget is always very helpful, but getting to a point where you have the discipline is part of it, because people struggle with the thought of doing things, not physically actually doing, because doing it sometimes is a lot easier than thinking the process through. So do you have, I guess what I'm asking is, are there things that you recommend people do, whether it's mentally, physically, because there are steps to it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I applaud you for paying down that credit card. That's
Well,
fantastic.
it
As
may have
I,
gone back up, but I'm just saying.
Oh,
well,
Reg.
we're all, right. Everyone's just trying to get by, but absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought up credit card debt, because that is, again, just to your point about, it's easy for me to sit here and say, please don't rack up credit card debt, because it's the interest is so high. And it's so, I hate seeing people pay such high interest to these credit card companies. But I also understand that sometimes it becomes a necessity. Um, and it really depends. It's very easy for that credit card debt to start small. I know I experienced that myself when I was in college. I think Angela and I were talking about this, and I always had this joke about this $70 poster that I bought, that I certainly did not need. I could barely make my rent. So, and I was a college student at NYU. I had no business buying anything, but I needed this poster for my apartment, and I put it on a credit card. And I think that $70 poster probably ended up costing me $700 by the time
Easily.
I was done with it. And so, so much of it is just about overcoming that mental challenge of feeling kind of feeling pre-defeated. And I think that that's very normal and very common of just why even bother? Why even bother? I'm making more because sometimes you make more, you make more than the minimum payments and it still doesn't really feel like it's going down. Um, there are kind of debt repayment methods that people use. I always recommend what they call the debt avalanche method, where, probably what you did was you want to pay those highest interest rate debts first.
Mm,
That's always recommended. But for some people, they need those psychological wins to keep
mm,
them
Right.
motivated. And so you might have had, let's say you had one of your credit cards in it or something that didn't have such a high interest, but it had a much smaller principal and you could pay that off quicker. While you're not saving money in the long run, it is a strategy that people use because then it makes you feel wow, look what I've done. I actually paid that entire card off.
mm.
So that is one way, there's kind of these mental games that we can play with them ourselves. And I always tell people at the end of the day, if it works, then absolutely that's something you can do.
Oh yeah, and the other thing that I did too was if whatever the bill was, I would make sure that I paid whatever because I love in credit cards that I'm not saying that they're the greatest thing in the world, but I love that when you get your bill, they break down what the interest is. So what I started doing was, okay, this is what the minimum, this is what the interest is. So I would tack all that onto the payment. So make that the minimum payment so that helps you to pay it down so much faster because the interest really is a thing that kills you over time. To your point about the $70 poster becomes the $700 poster.
Absolutely. And, I'll mention too that I built a very, very basic, nothing ecstatic, exciting here, but kind of this debt calculator, I call it, because don't forget too, we're paying all that extra debt. You're paying the interest. So we have the $70 versus the $700 poster.
Hmm.
But don't forget too, all that time that you're paying out all that money, that could have gone into investing for your future and been growing. So there's also that opportunity cost that's so important that you're missing out on that money going to somewhere else where it could be earning for you as well.
Wow, that's really good. So instead of feeling overwhelmed, we can start to say, okay, I'm going to grab the bull by the horns and take control of my financial health and well-being by taking the steps to sit down and look at where I am with my expenses, producing a purpose spending plan, maybe eliminating some things that I don't need, and saying to myself, but guess what I can do with those things? Now I can start to build myself up financially and starting to feel better. You start to grow your finances. So, wow, this is exciting for me.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is too, I think that people are really afraid of when you hear the word budget, I understand, it sounds like the sirens going off. Oh no, I'm not going to have any fun. It sounds restrictive. But I think that also like so much of what we're talking about is mindset. And maybe just start with the reality is a lot of the money that we're already spending, we have places we can save. So it might not even be about I mean, I just went through and I have cut our cell phone bill, and we have to have a landline where we are, and I cut that price about $50 a month with our carrier just by making a phone call. So you might find that money, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to cut out those lattes or any of the fun that you're having. There are other places that are just, I call it, bill creep, where it's just our cell phone carriers, our all that stuff. It's just our cable companies. It's going up, and there are places where you might be able to pull money from there. And so if you maybe for someone who's resistant to sitting down and writing out their expenses or a budget, you could kind of look at it that way is like, well, there might be places where we can spend a little less on utilities, groceries, whatever the case may be.
I like the
Yes.
term bill creep. I really like that. I'm gonna have to jot that down for later because that's exactly what happens. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he's an electrical engineer, and he was talking about how electric companies creep up the
Yeah.
every year your bill goes up by 6%. I'm like, what? How do you know this? But he has broken down, and he's retired a millionaire over. So he's that person that has done the
Mhm.
financial assessment. He says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get solar panels and this and that." But bill creeping is exactly what that is because we oftentimes we just, oh, daggone, this thing has gone up again, and we just pay it. and we don't think about getting lower rates with gas, or we don't call the cell phone or the companies,
Mm-hmm.
the cable companies, to lower our bills. So yeah, I love the bill creep. I love that. That may be a show on its own. The bill creep.
Yeah.
There
Pay
you
attention
go.
to the bill creep.
Yep.
I love
There
it.
you go. Yep.
All right. So what we're going to do is, the one thing that we're going to take away from this conversation right here is we're going to start with a complete financial assessment of everything that we're dealing with, so we'll know what we can save moving forward. That makes sense?
Absolutely.
Yes, that does. That makes sense. So let's see what else. We've talked about 3 things we can do right now to catch up on some of our retirement savings. Figure out where our money stands today.
Mm.
Let's just do it. Cut out some stuff we don't really need or cut back on some things. And then make a simple purpose spending plan or plan where
Not a budget.
I don't like that word. I can't do it. That word freaks me out. I don't know about you,
You're
though.
not alone. A lot of people don't like it.
Yeah, I decided to call it some purpose spending plan. I mean, I'm going to
Sure.
spend on what is purposeful to me, what's important to me. Maybe not a latte every day, but maybe a latte every other day, maybe.
Yeah.
But, so knowing a simple plan of where your money should go each month is going to help us. Okay, these basic steps will help us see the whole picture and start moving us in the right direction. Remember, we don't have to do this overnight.
Mm.
So let's just start small, like Melissa was saying. That brings us to the end of this episode. It was a great conversation. Melissa, I learned a great deal today. I'm probably going to need to listen to this episode again.
And we coined a phrase, bill creep.
Bill creep. Absolutely. We need to
We
get
have
t-shirts for the next time we're
Exactly.
That's right. Stop the bill creep.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yes. There
Melissa,
you go.
thank you for sharing your insights today. Our community, I'm sure, is going to benefit from that.
My pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, join us next week for the second part of this series, where Melissa will share the next 3 steps that we can take toward catching up for our retirement savings.
Yes, indeed. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the Wise Retirement Podcast on your favorite podcast platforms and leave us a review. Be sure to follow us on social media, your YouTubes, your Facebooks, your Instagrams at The Wise Retirement, so we can help you grow some money. So we'll see you on the next episode. I'm Reg.
And I'm Angela Kay, reminding you that we're on this journey together. Until next time, take care.
Welcome to the ride.